Yo, hello, and welcome to the very first episode of BCHEF. Now, since this is the first installment of BCHEF, I thought we'd get the show going by doing one of my all-time favorite pasta dishes. And it is one of the 4 classic Roman pasta dishes. So today, we are making Rigatoni All'Amatriciana. Now, a bit of backstory on the Roman pasta dishes. The Roman pasta dishes generally have very few ingredients, but very high-quality ingredients. And then they utilize proper technique to sort of elevate the very few ingredients into a sort of harmonious dish. Alright, so let's talk ingredients. And this is basically all we need. So these are some canned tomatoes. Now, if you can get them, I would use whole peeled Zen or Zano tomatoes. Since I couldn't find some, these are just some chopped Italian tomatoes. Now we have the guanciale. This one's sort of and now we have the guanciale.
Alright, now like your screen says, guanciale is cured pork cheek, but it can be kinda difficult to find, so if you can't find it, I would suggest using pancetta or even just bacon is completely fine too.
Now this one is kind of special. This one has been kind of like marinated almost in like chili, and I thought it would be really nice with the Amatriciana sauce. But as you can see, this guy is thib. Okay? Like he's got a lot of fat, this guy. But I'm sort of thinking like on the side here, like, this piece is gonna be really nice. And then of course we have Pecorino Romano, which is sort of the staple cheese in a lot of these Roman pasta dishes. Now, the flavor can be a little bit punchy, a little bit in your face. I still like it, so I still want to implement it, but what I'm also gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of like balance it out with a Parmesan.
Which is technically untraditional, but I'm sure my Italian grandmas can forgive me for this one.
This is just Parmigiano Reggiano. Now, what I would suggest is get these blocks. Don't buy like the pre-shredded stuff because it's got like weird
Oh my god, I'm gonna have to fucking cut in so many times. This dumbass can't explain for shit. Okay, so the pre-shredded stuff that you get in the bag sometimes have preservatives, which, if you know anything about food, it's there to prevent the product from going through any chemical changes.
So just do yourself a favor, get the good quality ingredients, get the blocks of this, and just like shred it on your own. And then of course for the pasta. Now, this is rigatoni. Now, rigatoni is sort of like this long cylinder shape with like these ridges outside of it. And the ridges make it really nice for the sauce to kind of like stick to it. I think I normally would use bucatini, which is just like a long, thick spaghetti basically. But since I like my carbonara with bucatini, I think we're gonna save the bucatini for this, for the carbonara episode. And for this amatriciana, we'll just use the rigatoni. And that's also going to be great. And then, of course, black pepper. Oh, and I almost forgot. White wine. Ugh. Now, the white wine is sort of the icing on the cake. It's going to balance it out a little bit. It's going to make it feel like you want to take an extra bite every time you finish one. Trust me. And now, if you don't drink alcohol or whatever, don't worry. It's going to burn away. We're gonna put it on our pan, so you're fine. Yeah, and with that, I think we're ready. I think we just go prep and we go cook. Yeah.
Alright, so I'm gonna unpack my guanciale, and then the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut off the skin. Now, after I've cut off the skin, I'm gonna spend a little time looking at it, figuring out, you know, where's the outer layer, where do I want to cut. Now you kind of want to cut out some of the outer layer because it's kind of been sitting in like salt and pepper, and in this case chili. And kind of like a dry-aged steak, it can kind of just like get yucky. So we're just going to remove some of it, we're going to trim it real nice, and then we're going to cut it into thick slices. Now, you can cut it however you like, but I would suggest bigger than you think. I think I went a little bit too big this time around, but generally I like, you know, kind of these like thick cubes. Now for the next step, this is pretty simple. You just get your canned tomatoes, you get them open, and you put them in a blender, and you just blend them for a couple of seconds. Now, if you don't have a blender, or if you don't have one available, you could use a food mill. You could also just crush them by hand, Or if you don't want to use your hand, you can also just kind of put your tomatoes in a bowl or something and just get a fork and kind of just squeeze them out. You know, just get them a little bit mushed, and then you're basically good to go. Don't have to blend it if you don't want to. And now I'm just gonna grab a bowl and then I'm gonna start shredding my cheese. Now I'm gonna shred both Pecorino Romano and Parmigiano Reggiano. I have this sort of like wheel cheese shreddy thingy. Now you could shred it however you like. You can use a microplane or a box grater, it doesn't really matter. But just make sure that you grate it as finely as you can. And the finer it is, the easier of a time it has to sort of incorporate into the sauce.
Oh yeah, a quick tip. These wedges of Parmesan, like once you're done with them, like let's say I've used it all, keep this little wedge here, keep the end, because it's gonna be really nice when you put it in like tomato sauce or something. You just kind of put it in as you're simmering it or something, and it's gonna give it a really nice flavor. So keep these around, valuable, yeah.
Alright, so I've already got my pot of water on the stove. It's starting to hit the boil. Once it's starting to hit the boil, I'm gonna add my guanciale to my pan. Now my pan is cold as I put it in, and we're gonna cook it on like low-medium heat because we want to render out all of the guanciale fat really slowly and really nicely. So just cook it slowly. We don't want to burn the edges, and we've got tons of time. Now once it's starting to sweat a little bit, just take a tool and just kind of stir it around, toss it a little bit in your pan, just make sure you cuddle it a little bit. Now once you're halfway done with the guanciale, you can go ahead and add your pasta. Now make sure you salt your water beforehand. I unfortunately didn't have footage of this, but I promise I salted my water. Now a few things once your guanciale is done cooking is I take some out. Now mainly I take some out for presentation purposes. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. And I also, since the guanciale has accumulated a lot of fat, I'm gonna go ahead and remove some of it because I don't want it all, but I still want some of it. And some of the fat that we're going to keep is going to reduce down with the white wine, and once we add the tomatoes, it's going to turn into a really nice sauce. Now once your guanciale is done and you're ready to make the sauce, make sure you grab your pepper mill or whatever you have and just crack a bunch of black pepper on there. The heat from the pan is going to make the pepper bloom and give it a little bit more extra flavor. And once that's been sitting there for 30 seconds to a minute, get your white wine, and now we start to have some fun. Now once the wine has sort of reduced down and all the alcohol has evaporated, go ahead and grab your tomatoes and get them in there. Now I cook my sauce for maybe a little bit longer than most people would because I like a more thick consistency. Now you can cook it to whatever consistency you like, but if you like it like me, you know, cook your tomatoes for a little bit extra time so you get that nice thick consistency. Oh, and remember this guy that I told you was valuable? Yeah, we're gonna put him in. And he's just gonna sit here while we simmer our tomato sauce for a little bit. I am gonna take it out again in a couple of minutes, but it's sort of just gonna add that like extra cheesy flavor and also help thicken the sauce for a little bit. Now once my sauce is done, I'm just gonna take it off the heat while I wait for my pasta to cook. I usually set a timer for 10 minutes when I cook pasta, and then I just start tasting it after the 10 minutes has passed. Now obviously the thing you want is al dente, but it can be a little bit difficult to find if you're a beginner, but it's sort of just when it's soft on the outside, but still has a little bit of crunch on the inside. A general tip I would do is just set your timer for 10 minutes, and then after a minute or so, or after 30 seconds, just take one out and taste them. Then once my pasta is done, I'm just going to drain it, and then I'm going to throw it into my sauce, and then I'm just going to sort of toss it around until every single piece of pasta is coated in sauce. And then I am going to add my cheese mixture, which I'm going to incorporate slowly, and once that's been incorporated, you're basically done and ready to plate.
So let's get a nice bite here with pasta and guanciale, and cheese. That was absolutely delicious. Now if you did enjoy the video, please subscribe to the channel. I plan on doing these maybe once a week or something. I thought this would be a good way to start. Next week, we'll probably do carbonara or something. Now I shall enjoy my food. So, peace out, motherfuckers.